The shortage of PlayStation 5s has finally come to an end, according to Sony, and it only took a little over 2 years to get here. I actually got my hands on the Horizon Forbidden West PlayStation package back in September, and I wanted to do a video, and it's the same video, it's just the structure has changed, which is, this is my view coming from PC to the PlayStation. What's the perspective of a PC player when it comes to the PlayStation 5? Now, initially, I wanted to just record a bunch of stuff, spend a month with it, and then put out this video and just give my thoughts, right? Now, that's still going to be the case with this video, just I got to spend more time with it because the idea started to shift and change, and it was like, hey, I want to wait for God of War Ragnarok to come out. I got a new monitor, an OLED one. I want to wait to get that and see how it looks on that. And now it's just kind of slowly been longer and longer until I made this video, and I feel like the beginning of 2023 is a perfect time to put this out. Now with this, I'm going to give breakdowns in these sections. We're going to start with the user interface, then we're going to talk about the game library, the performance and the graphics with that, and then we're going to finish with the controller. Now, I actually recorded me unboxing this, but I'm going to scrap all that footage because at this point, I just really want to look at those big portions of this. I'm not going to do the intro. It was kind of long anyways, but I do want to say that I really like the aesthetics of the console itself. I'm sure at this point we're probably a year away from them doing a redesign anyways, but I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely one of those things where the memes came out initially. It's like, hey, it looks like a router. It definitely does look like that, but I've come accustomed to the look. I think it looks pretty good. And I'm not going to talk about the performance in terms of like specs and things like that with this. I think most people have looked it up at this point. It is a solid console. It to me is like a mid-range PC. Certain things like ray tracing on this, although it does have the ability to do it, it's just not going to compete and look as good as a high-end PC. So disregarding that, right, looking at the user interface, the big one is going to be the game library with this and performance with those games, but also the controller, which I think is one of the things that this is just more leading edge, and it should be a bigger draw than I think a lot of people are talking about. Now, starting with the user interface, I think it's decent. I use the PlayStation 2, 3, and 4, and actually the original PlayStation, and you've seen the evolution of that over time. And to me, looking at this compared to the Nintendo Switch or to the Xbox, it's just these different ecosystems where this to me feels more like an Android device, where the Xbox, although it is a Windows-based device, it seems more like the Apple operating system. Here, I think it's easy to navigate. It's pretty clean and simple. If you haven't used it before, it may take a minute, but overall, I do like this user interface just because of the simplicity of it. During the recording of all of this as well, one of the big updates that they finally did was enabling 1440p resolution. That was a big one. I don't know why it took them 2 years to get that out, basically 2 years. And little things like that. I like when companies are listening to what the community is saying and making those improvements as they come up. And this one, it just felt like it took a little bit longer, but I am happy that it finally is there versus what it would normally do on 1440p is you could just upscale to 4K and it still ran really good, still looked great, but having that native 1440p is awesome. Also, just the ability to go in here and it's looking at just some of the basic things that you can change, right? Hey, let's look at the resolution, 1080p, 1440p, 4K. Do we want HDR? Are we going to have that automatically enabled or not? And all of these things play and look really good. You also have the options, depending on the game, to have it favor performance over visual quality or just balanced. And a lot of the times when you're favoring performance, this is where you can unlock the 120 hertz refresh rate. Or if you wanted to go into the 4K, it's going to upscale that a little bit more. And then in general, performance just suffers, right? I see this when I'm playing Forbidden West, where clicking over to favor resolution, immediately you can see the drop in FPS. It'll say 60, it feels more like it's like 30, it just gets a little bit choppier. Visually, it looks incredible, but I'll take the higher refresh rate every single time. It just plays smoother in that regard. A lot of times I'm doing favor performance or I'm doing balanced, and it feels like the sweet spot because it's still 4K, it still looks incredible. It just is going to run much smoother. So overall, I think the user interface here is good. It's decent. It's not mind-blowing. It's not revolutionary in any regards, but it's easy to navigate and you have a plethora of options with this, so it gets a thumbs up from me. So if you're coming from PC, don't expect this massive revolutionary ecosystem that you're going to be in. Just expect something that's clean, simple to use, and it performs well. Shifting over now to the game library. This is the main reason why you would buy the PlayStation, in my opinion. You want the games, right? The exclusive games. So for me, looking at Horizon, and I played Zero Dawn on PC, and I'm going to talk about that performance compared to this in a little bit, but they're finally bringing some of these games over. So I played Horizon Zero Dawn on PC, and then I actually got God of War on PC. Loved those games, but if you want that next installment and you don't want to wait forever, you're going to have to buy a PlayStation 5, and that's what I did. And I gotta say, with Forbidden West, that is, in terms of the visuals, one of the best looking games I've ever played, period. It is up there. It is that top spot right now. There's just something visually that they did with that game that is incredible, and I can't wait to see down the road, eventually, it's probably going to be a couple years, that they finally port that over to PC. But I mean, you boot that up for the first time, just the fluidity of the character, the animations, the visual, just clarity, fidelity, vibrancy of the game and the world that they built is amazing. They did a phenomenal job on that game. And now God of War Ragnarok just came out. I'm in the middle of still playing that game. Another game. It looks incredible. I don't think it looks visually quite as good as Forbidden West, but it's still amazing. It's very close to it. And these are the exclusives that people want, right? And then beyond that too, if you're looking at The Last of Us, now they just ported that game over to PC. I mean, Spider-Man, that was from the PlayStation 4. They ported that. So we are seeing these games are coming to PC, but we're just seeing these long periods that you have to wait in order to actually get your hands on it. And for me, I don't want to wait. I want to play these games right now, and I probably will play them again when they come out on PC. But looking at these exclusives, these big titles like this is why you would want to get the PlayStation 5. And I think for me personally, they're worth it. These are top-notch games, right? These are very good AAA titles that you are getting on this, with incredible stories, incredible visuals, and you're not going to find them anywhere else right now, at least. And like I said, if you don't want to wait, got to get a PlayStation 5. Now, they have the different things that I mentioned earlier in terms of being able to adjust performance, but you're not going to get the same level that you would if it was on PC. So we're just really looking at, hey, we want to favor performance. We want to favor the visuals. We want a balanced experience. And this unlocks certain things like the high refresh rate, or it just may increase the visuals, but you do get the small amount of adjustments with this. Again, not as good as you're going to find on PC. That's where I could see there's definitely this shift that you're going to have to adapt to. I have all these options with my PC, going back to Horizon Zero Dawn, all these adjustments that I can make that I can't do with Forbidden West on the PlayStation 5, which is a newer game. That's the thing that I get to squeeze everything out of that game on PC. I'm not going to have that option on a PlayStation 5. The only area that I could really see lacking in terms of the visuals, though, because again, these games still look incredible on the PlayStation 5, is the lighting. The lighting, if I go back and play Horizon Zero Dawn on PC, now they did rework that stuff specifically for PC, but it is better than Forbidden West. It still looks good on Forbidden West, but the lighting, that's the one area that I could see is like, man, this would look so much better on PC because what they could do with the lighting. And I see that a little bit with God of War. I still think they do a really good job with that game. But again, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, the lighting on this would just be a little bit better on PC. That is also affected by the monitor, and like I said earlier, I have an OLED monitor, so the blacks on screen do look better on that monitor compared to the other monitor that I have, which is a 32-inch 4K monitor from Aorus, and it still looks great on that monitor, but it definitely performs and looks better on the Asus ROG PG42UQ. That's a 42-inch OLED monitor. If you were playing on like an LG C2 OLED monitor, and there's a lot more monitors coming out this year that are going to be OLED, I think that's probably the best experience that you're going to get, because it does help with the lighting a little bit. You get those just true blacks when it comes to darker areas on screen. And before I forget this, I do want to say the SSD on this is incredibly fast. That was one of the big selling points when they announced the PlayStation 5. The quick resume here is really fast, loading up games incredibly fast. And the feature of the quick resume, you do have that on Xbox. That is a fast loading game system as well. But looking at this compared to even my PC, when you transfer, and I'm going to use Horizon Forbidden West as an example with this, when you actually transfer, like, hey, I'm going to move from this location, I'm going to fast travel to this other location, it's almost instant. Like, the amount of time it takes to just load all of that in is so quick. So the SSD on this, another big selling point, incredibly fast. Now, something I will say, depending on the game, like God of War Ragnarok did this, there are a ton of accessibility options in this. Now, we see a lot of those things typically are on newer PC games, but the fact that we're seeing this on console games as well is really awesome to see. There's just so many different things that they took into consideration. So it does feel like you get, maybe not on the visual side, but in general, a lot of different options that I think are important, not only from the user experience, right? Because a lot of these are for people that maybe are trying to play and they have disabilities where it's harder for them to use a regular controller and things like that. But even if you don't have that, certain things like auto pickup and things like this make the playing experience better. So I do like seeing that with these games, and I hope it's something that does continue. And one last quick tidbit on the games here, especially looking at the exclusives, is the ability to go back and play older games that maybe they were on the PlayStation 4, for instance. I got to play Ghost of Tsushima, and it's been awesome going back to play that game where I didn't get to play it, right? I had my PlayStation 4 for about a year and then sold it and then really just shifted over to PC, so I didn't get to play that game. Now, there's been rumors that's actually going to come to PC, but that was last year they were talking about that. Still haven't heard any concrete evidence that that's actually going to happen this year or next year. So in the meantime, again, I get to play this game and I don't have to wait around for who knows how long in order to play it. And some of these, you may never actually get to play it unless you get a PlayStation. Now, one thing I will say about these exclusives is it does seem more narrow. It seems like we have obviously these two different camps, right? Now, Switch, that's a whole completely different thing. You're only get to play like Mario and stuff like that on a Switch. A lot of other games, though, they're multi-platform, right? So these big AAA titles, Elden Ring and things like that, you get to play these on any console that you want, PC included with that. But looking at the exclusives, it does seem like PlayStation that is becoming more and more narrow, where looking at the Xbox, it does seem like, and this is, I think, partly to do with Microsoft, they're just buying up all these companies. So they have now all these different companies underneath them that they own, where they get to kind of hog some of these exclusives. I don't know how the next couple years are going to go because of that. And I think with this, we're going to see PlayStation holding tighter and tighter to their IPs in this regard. Now, we are seeing them coming over to Steam slowly. I think part of that is just recognizing like, whoa, you have all these people on PC that will buy this, and to shut themselves off from that market doesn't make sense when they can make a lot of money from PC players. So smart move on their part in that regard. But again, I'm looking at certain things. It's like, hey, Horizon Zero Dawn, that's a big one that I want to play. Spider-Man, I want to play God of War. I want to play Last of Us. That's on my list. Those are the big ones for me. And then we got other ones like Ghost of Tsushima that stand out, where it's like, I gotta play that game. And some of these coming over to PC, it's like, cool, I'll wait. Some of the other ones, hey, like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to wait for them, but it's going to be up to you. Does it feel like these exclusives are worth it? If not, I mean, looking at the other games that you could get, it's multi-platform. If you already own a PC, you're like, hey, I'm just going to buy it on PC. You really got to want to play these exclusives. And that brings us to the final part here, which is the controller. And I saved this for last, specifically because I know a lot of people talk about the controller. It's really good, and I know they've mentioned that. But to me, it's this really awesome evolution in the controller. The haptics with this thing, you just have to experience it. They have the Astro's game world or whatever that comes with the actual PlayStation, which really is the best showcase for what this controller can do. And it, to me, is incredible. This is such a huge thing when it comes to the controller that Xbox is just so far behind, very clearly behind when it comes to their controller tech. They still have great controllers. I love my Elite 2 controller, but in terms of the vibration, the haptics, they just have simple vibration. This thing is just next level with what you can do with it. Now, it comes with a gyroscope and some things like that, and the touchpad on it is pretty awesome too. That's not the big selling point. It is these haptics. The vibration is different than just a regular vibration. If I'm in God of War and I'm actually like gliding down a rope or something like that, the vibration is shifting and it actually feels similar to the vibration that would actually happen if I was sliding down a rope. If I'm in Forbidden West and I'm drawing the bow, right, with Aloy, this is actually going to provide feedback. So as you pull down that trigger, it's actually increasing the resistance with this. The speaker that the controller has also provides sound, which also just plays into the vibration. So it actually is adding an extra layer of that immersion that I'm talking about. So I'm going to give two examples with this. Hopefully it kind of helps, but really this is something that you need to experience in person. But let's go ahead and just showcase that really quick. Certain things like in God of War, when you actually are using your axe to cut something down, it's this like huge amount of pressure, and then you pull, and then it gives, right? So it's like you're winding this thing up and then you're letting all that pressure go. It's just, like I said, it's next level, and Xbox really has to catch up with this, because to me, going back to a regular controller, it's just not the same experience. It is an experience when it comes to this controller. And it's this combo that to me makes this console worth it. It's the exclusives that they have, because keep in mind, if they're exclusives in that ecosystem, they're really going to try to tap in typically to the haptics that this controller has, versus if it's a multi-platform game, that's just something on the back end of their list. They may do a little bit, but they're usually not going to put as much effort into making sure that it has really good haptic controls as an exclusive would. And this combo here, when you're playing these games, right, it just is a different experience. And it's something that you're not going to get on an Xbox. It's also something that you're not going to get on a PC. That's something I was thinking about earlier today, which is like vibration. If I'm talking about that, a PC player typically is going to be like, I don't care, dude, I use a mouse and keyboard. That's something that's like not even on typically a PC player's mind. I don't care about vibration, doesn't mean anything, right? You pick up a controller, it's like, oh, cool, vibration, whatever. You actually pick up this, again, it's a shift into an experience. I'm playing Spider-Man and I'm doing the web slinging, and you feel the increase in the swoosh of Spider-Man actually going through the air, and when you're pulling the trigger to actually shoot his webs, all these things make for an experience over just simple vibration. With PlayStation bringing over some of their games now to Steam, to PC, they actually have updated the firmware, so if you do use the PlayStation 5 controller on PC, you do get these effects, which is awesome, because that's really the way to play it, right? Again, a step up, an evolution in the playing experience versus just playing the game. And there's nothing wrong with just playing the game, but when you can get more input and feedback from the game, it feels more like you're integrated with it. You're a part of it, right? You're going through this experience versus simply just staring at a screen and playing a game. Now, performance with the controller has been top notch. It in terms of the input latency and all that other stuff. I haven't had any issues with the controller, which is great. And the only downside that I really see with it is the fact that the battery life is so short, right? It's like 6 hours or something like that. And to me, it could stand to be a little bit heavier if you increased that battery. It's pretty light. It is a very light controller, but I play on the Elite 2 controller, which is a very heavy controller, and I like the heavy feel to it. So I think with this, increased battery size would be nice. If they're not going to do that, I mean, the workaround really is you can buy a charging stand, which is something that I'm actually considering, or you just plug it in every time you're done with it, right? Up to you on that one, but it's the only area with the controller that I do see that is lacking. Now, comparing this to the PC, the biggest thing that you're going to get out of PC is using a mouse and keyboard. It's just, you have more control. And so with that, if you're going to look at, and it depends on the level that you're dealing with in terms of a player, but in general, you're going to perform better on a mouse and keyboard, right? You just have more control. You can be quicker with this than you can over a controller. And that depends on the person. I know that. For me, I typically can perform better on a mouse and keyboard in terms of how quick, especially if I'm playing first-person shooters, I can actually just zoom in onto another character, a bad guy, and I can actually shoot the weapon compared to this. But what I will say is I like the haptics so much on this that I would sacrifice performance a little bit on that end if it meant that every single game that I played had the haptics and utilize them to the degree that you find with God of War Ragnarok and Forbidden West on the PlayStation 5. I would take that on all my PC games if it meant I got to use this controller and actually utilize that. That's how much I like it. So in general, as you can tell, the controller is amazing, in my opinion, when utilized properly. One last thing I do want to cover, I did buy the 3D Pulse headset. It's actually a really good headset. I've thought about doing a review on it. I like this headset. It's $100, wireless, decent battery life. The controls on it are simple. The fit is the big one. It is very comfortable. And that's one of the things, if you watch any of my other reviews on headsets, I don't like a lot of pressure on my head. This is actually quite comfortable, and it does produce really good sound. So it's got the 3D space with it. There are options inside of the menu with the PlayStation that you can adjust. So it kind of gives you a little bit more control, which is really nice to see, where it allows you to tweak the audio. Where do you want sounds a little bit closer, a little bit further away? Do you want your mids a little bit higher or lower? Is really what it's adjusting. And so I think it has a good amount of control. It has a great fit to it. It has a solid price point, and it, in terms of the aesthetics, it matches everything. So it looks really, really good too. So to wrap this video up, me as a PC player, typically exclusively, I play some Xbox and Switch and all that other stuff, but PC is my main gaming rig. I really like the PlayStation 5. I like it for the exclusives that it has, and I really like it for the controller and the haptics. And that combo, that experience that you get out of those two things is the big draw for me. And at the price point, right, about $500, if you're looking at GPUs and then CPUs and stuff like that you're going to buy right now, I know you could buy a good rig that would be cheaper. It's not going to match the performance of a PlayStation 5, in my opinion. You'd have to cut some corners. And also, you're not going to get the exclusives. If I did that, I'm just stuck with the PC games, although, again, some of those are PlayStation 5 games that they've ported over. But are you going to get that same experience, and could you actually get the same performance out of that you would with the PlayStation 5? In my opinion, no. It's just not going to happen. So it is the combo, solid price point. It has a good user interface, simple, clean. It has a really good game library in terms of its exclusives, although it may, to me, seem a little bit more narrow. These are heavy hitters, right? You're looking at the God of War, you're looking at Last of Us, you're looking at Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man. These games are their heavy hitters, and if you want to play them right when they come out, you're going to have to get a PlayStation 5. And the experience for me has just been really good. I really like this console, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. It is the combo of the controller and these exclusives and what they're doing with that provides you this just really great experience that you're not going to get on a PC necessarily. Again, small workarounds. Hey, I could get the PlayStation 5 controller, and you're going to get the firmware update, and you get to play God of War, and you do get to actually experience that in that regard. But if you're wanting to get ahead of everything and get these things right as they come out, the PlayStation 5 is the way to go. So that's actually going to be it for this one. I will have a link not only for the PlayStation 5 in the description, I'll have it for the headset as well if you want to pick that up, and then the monitors that I've been using. If you have any questions about this, let me know in the comment section. I will be sure to answer that for you there. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.